All right, so today's session is on documenting processes on the process tools page. So we are on this process called complaints or customer complaints. And this is in the doing the business function. And I see it from this breadcrumb trail right here. This is how you can always tell, where the process is on the 4 key functions. And if I click this, it's going to take me back to the 4 key functions. I'm just going to click this again. Another reason why this breadcrumb trail is important is if I'm on a work plan, so I'm going to click right here on this work plan that I have. Now I'm on the work plan, and now you can see the breadcrumb trail expands. So I'm on the processing a customer complaint work plan. And if I want to get back to the title of the process, I just click this, and then it takes me back to the title. So this currently is what you click to make a process public. On the dashboard screen, there's this area here called public processes. And this is where you can mark processes public and have them appear here in this folder. Public processes are meant to be processes that are company-wide. So every employee needs to have access to these processes. They're not going to be on one person's job description or another. They're going to be company-wide. So things like HR stuff, like employee handbook, or how to have meetings or time off vacation requests, time management, things that are relative or are important to all employees would go in the public folder. So this icon right here, that's marked with the P, would put this process in the public folder. The one in the middle here, which is illuminated, is the process documentation completed icon. So that turns the process title black, which is a sign to everyone who looks at it that this process is finished. So if we go back here to the 4 key functions, you'll see these processes here have been marked as complete. Whereas like these that are blue still or red have not been marked as complete. So to mark something as complete or to unmark it as complete, you just check this box. This is the link to job description icon. So on a process, and those of you who were in last week's session probably saw me do this then. But for anyone who wasn't, if you have a process and you want to link it to a job description from the process tools page where we are now, you just select this icon, and then I'm going to see the org chart. So this is my organization chart. The orange positions mean that this process has been linked to that position. So from this screen, I can link and unlink processes to job descriptions. So right here, if I click a position, you see it just turned orange. So that is means that just linked to the position. And then if I want to unlink it, I just click this and it unlinks it. So when you're building your job descriptions, for the first pass at it, you're probably on the organization chart and you go link to job description and you link all the processes. But if you have added a new process and you want to just quickly link it to a job description, that's what this icon is for. It's also nice, this feature, just to check that you've got processes on the right job descriptions. So from here, I can just do a quick glance of this and I can see that it's been put on the appropriate or the correct job descriptions. And again, I can link it and unlink it from here. So I'm just going to close this out. To edit the title and the objective of the process, I just click and then it opens. So this gives me access to edit the title of this position, and the save button is right over here to the right. Objective, same thing, click and it opens for you to edit. So most everything in TouchStone is click to edit. And if you're thinking, how do I edit this or how do I change it? You click right on it and it's going to open. As you can see, and it's like highlighting this area that your cursor is on, letting you know that that's the editable field. So let's talk about the process tools in general here, and then I'm going to discuss in depth work plans and checklists today. Next session, we're going to finish up with the rest of the process tools. So over here to the left, underneath where it says process tools, are all of the templates that you have available to document your processes with. So we call them tools, but in a sense, they're templates, they're structured documents, which give you the template for documenting that process. There are numerous options here, as you can see. Not all processes use every template or every tool within it. You want to decide what is the best structure or format for the process that you're about to document. 9 times out of 10, the process will have a work plan. So the work plan right here is a step-by-step set of tasks or instructions on how that work is done. Generally, this is a necessary tool because it's what's used for training. It has the most detail. It's the most used of the tools. Then a process could have a checklist right here if you need some quality control for how it's done. It could have a script like this one if there's a verbal interaction in the process. So if there's some kind of conversation that happens or frequently asked questions, then that's when you know you need a script. There is an uploaded files template. This uploaded files section allows you to take documents, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or PDF documents, and upload them to the process. And I'll just click this one so you can see it. So I can take a file and just drag it, and then boom, it uploads. There's also a documents tool, which is right here. The documents tool is like a blank Word document. So you can put in a form or you can cut and paste things in from Word. The custom form tool is a form tool that allows you to build a fillable form. So if the process has information in it and you want to collect that information from someone who's running that process, then you can build a custom form. And these can be completed on the dashboard, and then you can run reports on them. So you know the process could use a custom form if the process has some information in it, or you need information on what happened while somebody was doing that process. Customer complaint form is a perfect example. I want to collect the information from the customer who's complaining and save it somewhere so that I can deal with it or review it. There is a policy note tool. So a policy note is when you've got a really important policy or rule about the process that you really want to stand out. You want it to be obvious to people that this is an important thing that they have to follow. You can even have your employees mark it as I've read and agreed to this on the dashboard if you have new policies. And then we've got video and audio. So video is for training videos, obviously. So right here, it's the same idea as the uploaded files. I can drag a new video right here to this field and it'll upload. And then audio files. So training videos are great if the process is visual in nature, or you can do like a screen recording of something, even a computer process. Anytime that's possible, I highly recommend a video. And then audio is the same idea, except for it's an MP3 file. So there's no actual video. It just records the sound. So that's kind of a brief highlight of all the tools. Again, you don't use every single tool. You decide what is the best structure for the process that you're documenting and choose to use any or some of the templates that make sense for that process. So let's talk about work plans. To make a work plan, you just click this little plus button. So we've put this little plus sign so it's more obvious this is what you click to add a work plan. If you have an existing work plan or somebody's already built a work plan in the process, or it's a library process, you're going to see it right here under the title. So right here, I see scripts, and I've got 4 scripts here. So anytime you create a tool, you're going to see it right under the title of that tool. So to make a work plan, I just click this little plus sign, and then TouchStone's prompting me for the title of the work plan and the objective of it. So you put in your new title of the work plan, and then you can type in the objective, which is the purpose of it. Why does it exist? Usually a sentence or a phrase, not something elaborate, because if you start to do more than a sentence or two, you're starting to describe the work of the work plan instead of like the purpose. Then I just hit create work plan. Now I'm going to see the work plan template pop up, and you'll notice too over here I've got this new work plan title. On this screen, if I want to edit the title of the work plan, I just click and it opens to edit. The objective, same thing, click and it opens to edit. If you move away, if you change something, you're going to want to save it. If you move away from it, it's just going to stay what it was before, but you can hit this cancel button to close this out. This toolbar row, this will convert a work plan into a checklist. And I'm going to show you what that looks like when we look at a real work plan. But that's what this icon's for. And again, if you hover over it, you're going to see exactly what that icon is meant to do. This icon allows you to move a tool out of a process into another process. So if you build a work plan or a checklist, any of these tools inside of one process, and then you decide later for whatever reason that you want to move it into another one, this is how you do that. This happens if you're combining processes. This also can happen if you have pulled down a library process and you want to take something from it that you like, but you have your own process for that. So you can pull what you want out of the library process and then delete the library process. So if I hit this move process tool, I'm now going to see a drop down of all the sub functions in the 4 key functions. So what I'm doing here is I'm searching for the process that I want to move this work plan into. So I would go to the sub function where that process exists, hit the drop down here, and now these are all of my processes that are in the finance sub function. So again, I'm searching for the process that I want to move this into. I choose it and then I hit move. So I'm not actually going to move this, but you get the idea. You look for the process you want to move it into, you hit move, and then TouchStone will take this work plan or whatever it is you're moving out of that process and move it into another. This is the print download button. When I select this, I can send this directly to my printer or I can download it to Word. If you send it to your printer, every printer nowadays has this little destination feature and it says save as PDF. So again, I'll do that again. All I hit was the printer icon, and then I'm going to go send to printer, and then I would choose the save to PDF, which would allow me to save this as a PDF. You can, these options here, if you want to get rid of the background graphics or you want to get rid of the header or footer, which is probably a good thing to do because you'll notice if I do this, it's going to have the web address up here and down here. And then you just hit save, and then you've saved it as a PDF. Or you choose your printer, and obviously you can print it directly to your printer. If you want to download it to Word, you click this download to Word button. And I don't have Word on this computer, unfortunately, but Word would open and then it would download this work plan into Word. So that is the printer features right here. This icon is the archive. So every tool inside of every process can be archived. And what the archive means is it is essentially taking a copy of this tool that you're going to archive and putting it into the archive. So what you want to use the archive for is if you want to keep versions of your tools. So if you want to update a work plan, but you don't want to forget what it used to look like, you archive it just by clicking the archive button. It's going to say, are you sure? You say, okay. Oops, it's log me out. Once it's in the archive, sorry, I'm just going to go back. Then you can view it from the archive and restore it. So I'm just going back to this. Over here to the right is how you get to the archived. So if I click the archive, I'm going to see these 2 work plans that I've archived. So I'll start that over again. If I want to archive something, I hit this little archive button. I'm on a work plan, but I could be on a script as well. Here's a script I want to archive. I hit the archive button. Then with just one click, it's going to put a copy of this into the archive. Then if I want to go and restore it, or I want to view it, I go to archived right here, and then I'm in the archive for scripts. This button here is delete. So with one click, I can delete a work plan, a checklist, any tool. When it asks you, gives you one chance to change your mind, asking, are you sure you want to delete it? Once you say yes, then that tool is gone. But same as the archived, I can go here to deleted, and I can view what I've deleted. Only administrators can delete things, but if you are an administrator or one of your employees is, and you accidentally delete something, it's never really gone. You can go here to this deleted and then find what it is that was deleted. So that's these toolbar rows. Again, it's all the functionality that you're used to, but it's just, we've done it in different little icons and improved the functionality. All right, so let's go back to this work plan. So when you're building a work plan, work plans are step by step. So for every step of the work plan, you want to add a task. So if I was going to start to build this, I just click by adding a task. First task pops up, and I click where it says untitled, and this task opens. So then I would type in the name of the task, list it out, and then I hit save. So then this is the first task. So think step by step. What's the first thing that happens? Write that out. Once that task ends, click add task again, and then you got your second task. So then this is the second thing. So work plans go in this sequential order, step by step, putting in as much detail as necessary in order for somebody who doesn't know how to do this work to be able to follow it and do it. This toolbar looks a little different than it currently does. It's just been updated with a new user interface. All these icons are pretty much the same. And again, if you hover over them, you're going to see what they do. These are bold, underline, strike through. You can change the font of your work plans if you want to. And there's like expanded font types. Everything in TouchStone, as we're just typing it in, is Arial. If you want your font to be different than Arial, you can highlight it all and change it. The only objection I have to that is it's going to be difficult to manage it that way, because when someone else goes to add something, they're going to just start typing and then it's going to be Arial. So when you export things, you can change the font to whatever you want, but it's probably a safer bet to keep it all Arial. At some point, we will have like a default font. Now that we've made improvements to this page, we can add even a more extensive functionality. Here's the font size right here. You can do numbered list, bullets. You're all familiar with that. Text color, background color, page break. So this is kind of a nice feature, because if you want to print something and you want to make sure that it stays on one page and then goes to a second page, you can now insert a page break. And so then when you go to print it as a PDF, then it cuts it off at that page break. Now, there are some companies that use TouchStone that are still just really wanting to print things all the time. And if that's you, that's fine. The only thing I would say about that is TouchStone allows you to move into a paperless environment. And I've probably said this before, but I'll say it quickly again. Adapt to a paperless environment. It's more environmental. It's better for communication. Things get updated better. You don't have tons of paper around, versions, filing. Some things have to be printed, but try to move away from that as much as you can. There's a little character thing here. This is something that we haven't had before, but some of you in foreign countries, you can do like different characters and symbols now. This is an insert image. This replaces the little tree icon that some of you are familiar with. What's even better about this, or more fun, is now I can take an image and drag it. So I just took this image from my other screen and then I let go. And then boom, there it is. When you insert the image, you can highlight it like this, and then I could make it bigger or smaller. And this is better functionality than what exists now because it's more controlled. And then I save it, and then there's that image. Images are great for documentation. You can take a screenshot of how something's supposed to look, or a picture of something, and then put it into TouchStone just by drag and drop. And then resizing is even easier. I'm resizing in and out this way and that way. This next icon over is the link tool. So this allows you to do the hyperlinks. If you're confused by these icons at all, you just hover over them and it tells you what it does. So I hit this little link feature, and it's the same idea as it exists now. If I hit the drop down here, I can choose URL. So this is where I want to link to a website or a web page or another page inside of another web tool. And then the other link types are things that are inside of TouchStone. So I can link to another work plan or to another checklist. And then lastly, this is allows you to put in tables into work plans. Now there's the document tool, there's the custom form tool. I think those are better for tables because you're filling things out normally in a table. Although sometimes you want to show information that's in a table. So you can now add tables with cells and columns to work plans if you choose. But do remember, if you add a table to a work plan, if you go to use it on the dashboard, you're not going to be able to fill in that table in the work plan, because on the dashboard, work plans they're not editable, that you can just view and read them from the dashboard. The only types of forms or tables you can fill out on the dashboard are in the custom form tool or in the document tool. So this is the toolbar. I'm just going to save this. When I'm ready to add my third task, I go and click Add Task again, and then I continue on with the step-by-step. Under tasks, there's the second section of the work plan called expectations. The expectations are for, I like to say, anything else that needs to be said about the work plan that isn't a part of the tasks. So anything that's not a step, anything that's not an action, or a physical action. So an expectation might be something subjective, like a quality. It could be timing. So it could be when something's done. So you see, I'm just adding these different expectations, just like tasks. You want to break them into 1, 2, 3 if there are multiple. So it could be a quality, something subjective, when something happens, something extra that you would do while you're doing this work just to make it that much better. It's like the icing on the top kind of thing. When one person does it and just follows the tasks, well, it happens. But when another person does it and follows the tasks, but does extra things, then that the second person is, in a sense, doing it better. So if you can capture those qualities, then they can go here. Sometimes in expectations, describing why something's important can be helpful. A lot of times when employees don't do things the way that they're supposed to do, it's because they don't understand the bigger impact of it. They don't understand why they have to do it that way or why that's important. So if you put the context in, you can put that in the expectations field. If there are no expectations, then you leave this blank. You don't need to fill that out. There's not always expectations. Tasks are drag and drop too. So I can just pull this up and down to reorder these. All right, so let's talk about some qualities of a good work plan. So first thing, just speaking about the title here, it's always good to have the subject first and the verb or the adjective second. So you'll notice this is processing customer complaints. I would rather it say customer complaint processing, like that. Because when I'm looking at this title, my eye is going right here first, customer complaint. When I'm searching for something, I'm going to search customer complaint. I'm not going to search processing. So put the verb or the adjective at the end. That's also true for the process title. So this process title just says complaints. But with those titles, you want to do the verb or the adjective last if you can. When you build your work plans, another important thing around titles to think about is to consider if you're going to have multiple work plans or if it's just one work plan. So let's go back to the title right here. Now I'm back at the title screen, and I just got there by hitting the breadcrumb trail. So if I'm about to document this process called customer complaints or complaints, I might want to ask myself, is there just one thing that happens here where there's a beginning and an end and a series of steps in between, and then that's it? If it's true that there's just one thing, one workflow that happens, then I'll probably just have one work plan over here. And the title of the process and the title of that first work plan could be the same. Unless there's some reason to differentiate it, it could just simply be the same. But if it's the type of process where it has multiple parts to it, so there are multiple workflows, multiple things that happen, then I would go and title those work plans. And that's a good thing to do before you even start in on documenting one of the work plans. Just think, are there multiple work plans or is there just one? Sometimes it's not super clear whether there's going to be two or just one. So occasionally you have to kind of find your way there. You will have things where it's obvious. So I'm just going back to the 4 key functions list here. Let's go to another process here in running. So here's, we go down to accounts. This is a straightforward process. This is accounts payable. So you can see I have different work plans here, one for making check deposits, one for bank deposits, one for invoicing. So when I asked myself, are there multiple things that happen related to accounts payable? Yes, there are. There are numerous ways that we pay bills, and these are all the different ways, and they are signified or designated with different work plans because they have different workflows. So this isn't an exact science, but you can see some examples that are pretty straightforward. And then here again, if you go through your work plan and then you write it all out and then you think to yourself, wow, it really should be 2, then you can break it apart. Or it should be 1, then you can put it back together. So let's go back here. So number 1, decide, is it going to be multiple work plans or just one work plan? Then start in on documenting. Before I start on any work plan, I really try to think to myself, who's the audience for this? What are the minimum qualifications of the person who's going to be doing this work? So what I mean by that is, when I go to hire someone who's going to be handling customer complaints, what are the requirements of that position? Do they have to have a college degree? Do they have to have 5 years of customer service experience? Some processes that take a fair amount of ability are going to be done by a person who you've hired with those abilities. So some obvious examples are professional organizations, so doctors, lawyers. If I'm a lawyer and I own a law firm and I'm documenting a process for how to create a brief, well, I don't have to explain what they should know in law school, what they learned in law school. I just have to list out how I would do it. A simpler example, related to customer complaints. If I'm hiring someone who has experience, has computer experience, knows how to search the internet, has had customer service training and has demonstrated abilities in that area. Well, when I go to document this process, I can say locate the customer's invoice. I don't have to say open up the database, go to the Excel spreadsheet. So think about the minimum qualifications of the person, and that will help you to decide what level of detail you need. Another interesting point around this is when you document a process, if you do have the intention of fully training the person on how to do that work without any education or experience in advance, then you're building documentation, which is more valuable, in my opinion. So for example, if I'm hiring a bookkeeper and I'm going to train that person on how to be a bookkeeper, so from the bottom up, I'm going to train them on how to use QuickBooks, how to do a spreadsheet, all of that. And my processes are so good that they just can study them and read them and know what to do. Well, now I could take someone, I can hire them at a lesser amount. And part of the value that they get from my company is I'm teaching them how to be a bookkeeper with my processes. But then the opposite is also true. If your processes are very simple, they're broad stroked, they show the person the general idea of how to do it, but they don't train them, then you need to hire someone with experience. So this is just an example work plan, and I've done a few things wrong just to make a point. So let's look at task number 2 here. This says, gather the following information, comma, the client's name, the phone number, comma, location of the work and the service performed, and any other details necessary to help you address the situation. So that's a mouthful, like that's a lot of things happening all in one sentence. So a better way, rather than writing something in a narrative, very descriptive, sentence and sentence after sentence, a better way is to break it up and write it as if they're following steps. So I'd click this and I'd say, gather the following information. That implies a list. So then I go here and then I can use the bullets. And then at the end of every comma, I just bullet this like that. I can even sub-bullet it. So by breaking it apart like this, I'm just going to save it. It looks a little different, right? Your eye can follow this a little bit better. So gather the following information. Now I'm seeing it like a list. Okay, so I got to get the client's name, then I got to do the work, then I've got to find these details. It's just much easier to see. So if you've written or anyone's written anything in a narrative format, and you can recognize it right off the bat because you'll see a laundry, you'll see just like sentence after sentence. It'll be in paragraphs. Work plans are, anytime I see a work plan that's in paragraphs, like a task is 2 paragraphs long, I already know that there's a problem with it. Even in the most complicated of things, lists are better. Even if it's not a step-by-step sort of thing, even if you're doing descriptive kind of sentences and a lot of details because whatever you're describing is quite complicated, it's still better to break it apart like you're seeing here. Another thing to avoid is writing in not a uniform way. So this is something you want to teach your employees as well. So an ununiform way is like capitalizing each letter in a word, or underlying things like this to make a point, or highlighting a certain sentence just to reinforce that, or turning it red to capture someone's attention. When you write like that, that's your personal style. And if everybody writes the work plans with their own personal style, well, suddenly you're going to see crazy stuff all over the place. And all of you have probably or have seen someone who's just like overzealous about this and just turns everything red because they want to make the point, underlines and put exclamation points. And then I might decide to do all caps because that's how it stands out to me. But then someone else might turn it red and suddenly your documentation just looks ununiform. So think about a normal way writing techniques or writing conventions. Having said that, if you really like red to reinforce things, then tell everyone to do it that way. If you want to reinforce a word or a statement, then everyone can make it red, but nothing else. Don't underline it, don't capitalize it. This is an example of a hyperlink right here. So the hyperlinks are good to show the relationships between your processes. So this is a hyperlink to the policy right here. So in a work plan, oftentimes you're, or you can refer to other tools within that process. So I could say, fill out this checklist, and then I make a link to it, or follow this guarantee, and then I make a link to the guarantee, or use this script, and then I make a link to the script. So use these hyperlinks to show the relationships between the tasks in the work plan and the rest of the process, if that's possible. Also use the hyperlinks to show relationships between this task and a whole nother process. So this says enter flags and actions into the CRM. So this implies that I enter flags and actions in a lot of different processes, say. I have to add that into the CRM in a lot of different situations. So rather than repeating the steps of how to enter the flags and actions into the CRM inside of the 5 different processes that somebody would do that, rather than doing that, I would create a process and make a hyperlink to it. So I'm going to click this enter flags, and then you can see I've gone to a whole nother process. So this is in running the business. This is CRM how-tos, and this is a work plan here on how to enter flags. Just as a side note, this type of process for your software is always good. So enter how to enter things into your CRM, or CRM how-tos, or QuickBooks how-tos. So any software you have a process for that software, and then create work plans on how to do the common actions within that software. The better this is, the easier it's going to be to train people, especially if you're using software that's not common. Like QuickBooks is pretty common. Every bookkeeper pretty much knows how to use it. But there are other types of software that your business has that is not common. So you can either, if you've customized it in such a way that you have to build your own step-by-steps, then do that. But if the CRM itself or the software system itself has good tutorials, then you can do this, where you just make hyperlinks to those tutorials. So this is a link directly to how to enter flags in the CRM system's software tutorials, which are all online. This is a great thing to do, because if someone forgets how to do that, if you don't have a process like this, they have to go to the tutorial, they go to the outline, they search for it. It's just longer for them to find it and remember what to do. So I'm just going to hit the back button here and go back. All right. Here's another example of complete daily checklist, and the checklist is right here. So when you start in on your work plans, you want to think step by step, get your mind to go first step, second step, third step. Even in the most complicated of things, if you draw your attention to what's first, what's second, and then start listing out tasks, then that's the best way to approach it. Think about the other tools that you might need to use, and can you make hyperlinks to those? Think of breaking it apart into bullet points like this and sub-bullet points. All right, let's talk about checklists next. So to build a checklist, it's the same thing as the work plan. You just go right to the plus, you click the plus, and then you're going to put in the name of the checklist. Usually the name of the checklist, I mean, I suppose it could be the same as the process title, but usually it's different. Here's the objective, and then you just hit create checklist. So now it appears right here. So to add a checklist item, I just click this box, add checklist item, click it open, and then type in the first step. Usually in checklists, it's not sentences of information. It's just a reminder of what to do. It's not the complete explanation of what to do. So a checklist, again, is a reminder. Do this, do that, do the next. But the detail on how to do that, like with images and lots of information is usually in the work plan. Another reason why that's important is if you build a checklist and it's pages long, because every checklist item like this is explaining thoroughly how to do that work in detail, it's just confusing. It's hard to see. I can't quickly go tick, 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 did it, did it, did it. And that's the point of a checklist. It's for quality control. So all of this toolbar is the same as what I went through in the work plan. So this is exactly the same as what we just went through. Another key feature, I'm just going to go back here to this work plan, is converting a work plan into a checklist. So if I tick this off and say, okay, then TouchStone's going to build a checklist out of my work plan. So right here is the checklist or the work plan. And then you can see right down here, it's been made into a checklist. Probably what I would normally do if I have a work plan and I build it into a checklist like we just did, I might just go and condense it down a little bit. So this doesn't have a ton of information, but if you did have a lot of information in the tasks, you could, is this a warranty issue? You'd like get rid of all of that and then save this. And so it's just like one little step going from the box all the way to the right. And again, it's just an effort of making it really simple. So use checklists when you need quality control. Use this tool when you need evidence that something's been done. Use it when it's a very complicated series of tasks and the employee themselves really needs to make sure and have a way of tracking what they've done and what they haven't done. Use it for management purposes. So if you're a manager and you want to know that something's been done without having to ask, checklists are great for that, because I could do these an employee could do these checklists in TouchStone, and I'll show you an example of that. And then I, as the manager, could go run a report over here and see that they'd been done. Use a checklist for quantification purposes as a manager. So if you need to measure what's happened and in what period of time, checklists can be great for that. So there are all these different uses for checklists, but make sure you know exactly what your intention is with it. Why are you creating a checklist here? Because that's important for context for the employee, but it's also important for you as the manager, because the last thing you want to do is just create a ton of checklists and then not really have an intention of using them. Some people go nuts with checklists because they just like them so much, they like the idea of them. And then I would look at their account and it's like every process has a checklist. And that's not really realistic. It's not realistic to think that an employee would be like doing a checklist for all the work that they do every day. There might be some positions where that makes sense, but for the most part, it doesn't really make sense. So think of, if you want some overall job performance checklists, think of like daily or weekly or monthly checklists that someone would fill out, just letting you know what had happened in that day or that week or that month. It's a manager's job to manage a checklist. One of the complaints I hear from business owners regarding processes quite often is that I can't get my employees to follow it. I build all this and nobody uses it. I go back to it a month later, I told them to use it, and then they just stopped. All of that is your fault. It's all the manager's fault. It's all the business owner's fault. It's not the employee's fault. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's the manager's job to make sure that the processes are being followed. And checklists are a prime example of this. If I build a checklist and I give it to my employee and say, I want you to fill this out every day, and then I never bring it back up again, or I forget about it a few weeks later, they didn't do it one day, I didn't even notice because I wasn't looking, then all of a sudden there's a big problem and someone forgot to set the alarm when they left that day and somebody broke into the building or the cops got called in the middle of the night. And I go to the person and say, well, didn't you go through the checklist? I'm like, well, no, I haven't done that in like a month. It's not the employee's fault. It's the manager's fault. So if you build a checklist, have the intention of looking at it. And TouchStone makes that really easy. So I'm going to show you a few examples of that. Let's see. I'm going to go here to the dashboard. So I have a control panel here for this position called the Manager of Administration and Finance. I select this position. I see my work, basically. So here's that customer complaint process. So if I go here to this complaint process, now I'm seeing what was built in this process. And you can see there's that weird titled work plan I put in. Here's the checklists, both these checklists that we created. If I click this checklist, then I just tick off the boxes as I do it. So every checklist, you can create daily, you can create weekly, you can create monthly. Let's go to another example. Here's a daily checklist. So this is an example of what I was talking about a few minutes ago when there's something that I want tracked every day that the employee does. So this is what I did at 8, and then this is what I did at 10, and this is what I did at 11. So the employee is filling this checklist out and saving it back to TouchStone. When they save it, it date and time stamps it, and this little print button appears that allows you to print it. So it's pretty easy for someone to go in and complete a checklist. Go to the checklist, click it, fill it out, save it. This can all be done on a cell phone. It can be done on an iPad. Here's another example. Here's a year-end checklist. So what I do at the end of the year. This is kind of nifty. This is from the library, if anyone's interested in this. Run the year-end financials, analysis, and then save it. So someone goes and completes these checklists, tick, 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 save. And then at the end of the day or end of the week or end of the month, I, as the manager, go over here to reports and I go to management review and I run a report. So I can do things that happened today. I can do a whole week's worth of time. I don't know if there's anything here because this is my dummy account. But when I hit run report, then it's going to give me a list of everything that was done. And this is a fake account in staging, so that's why nothing's being pulled up. But the idea is the manager can go and run a report of a week, a day, a month. And you saw how quick that is. I put the date range in. I can even go to the user and choose a specific person and hit run report. So when I say verify that the checklists are there, this is all the manager has to do. Verify that it's there. And if I see that Mary has missed a day, I'm going to go to her and say, Mary, where's Wednesdays? I didn't see the checklist there. I'm only going to have to do that a certain number of times before Mary really gets the fact that I'm really looking at this, that I'm paying attention to it, that checklist is important to me, and then she'll start to make it important. It's just when employees feel like, why am I doing this? Nobody's looking at it. Nobody cares. Why should I? There's no reason for this. I'm too busy. And that feeling comes from, again, the manager not making it important.